Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Another film review. Mark. Yeah, so another film review today. Well, I'm looking at Red Dragon, a part of the Hannibal Lecter series. This is it's a strange sort of film because it's a film that's not kind of needed in a sense, like it's a prequel but a remake of a prequel, and it's a strange sort of film because it was the original sort of film of this was called Manhunter, and it was remade, I think, just due to the popularity of the Silence of the Lambs and Hannibal. This is I can't remember the actor's name. Obviously, I know Anthony Hopkins, but I can't remember the other actor's name. Trying to think. Let me have a little look. No, I can't remember. So let me put on the old granddad glasses. What was his name? Who played? Who played Will Graham? That's it. Edward Norton, who plays Will Graham. Who's like a kind of detective, but has this ability of detecting things that have happened at a murder scene, and he's got great ability of seeing things that were that have happened. So the police use him quite a bit for their investigations. And in this film, there's a killer who's killed two families, and he's been requested to go there by Crawford, who's played by Harvey Keitel, to go see if he can assist them in their investigations, because he is good at his job. He's managed to catch other killers, including Hannibal Lecter. So we see him going to the crime scenes, and he's sort of like going through them and recording on the dictaphone what he sees, like investigations, how he got into the house, how comes he wasn't seen or heard, and he starts unpicking the crime scene and how it sort of all took place. Like in the first crime scene, he says that he stabs the wife in the stomach and shoots the husband and leaves the wife to watch. And then he goes and kills the other children, and he replaces the husband and the children's eyes with bits of mirror and the wife's eyes, and so he can see himself doing the crimes, all this kind of thing. And so they fathom out all these sort of clues, but it doesn't get them any near to catching the killer, who in this film is called the Tooth Fairy. In Silence of the Lambs, I believe it's called Buffalo Bill. And so he recruits the views and sort of assistance of Hannibal Lecter, who's played by Anthony Hopkins. I know he said Anthony Perkins. He's who's in prison in a sort of like a solitary confinement, where he's in this cell with a stone wall cell with a glass panel in front of him. So he goes there, and obviously there's lots of sort of conversations take place. And if you've seen any of the Hannibal films, you know how witty Hannibal Lecter is, and he's quite terrifying because he's so human, isn't he? But he's he eats his victims. The very beginning of the film is he's at an opera and listening to this orchestra play, and there's a flute player who's just out of tune, so he ends up killing this flute player and serving it to his guests at his dinner party. So he's very merciless, but very human at the same time. And so there's a big sort of conversations go on between um, our detective and Hannibal Lecter. And William Graham, he still doesn't really get too close to what's actually going on, but he Hannibal drops hints to him. But there's something going on behind scenes because Hannibal wants to see all the notes and wants to see the pictures of the crime scenes, which he won't allow him to see because he thinks he's going to use that to sort of get off on, if you like. And but they come across a communication that's going on between the Tooth Fairy and Hannibal Lecter, as one of the cleaners was cleaning out Hannibal's room, washing it out, and they found within the toilet roll in there a message hidden inside from the Tooth Fairy. And Hannibal's been getting the telephone and placing ads in local sort of personal columns in the paper, in replying to them, giving him hints about things and stuff like that. And there is one part in the film when the hint that's in the paper is the address of our detective, William Graham. So it's putting his family at risk. But luckily that they fathom this out and get William Graham's family away quick enough. And then Hannibal tends to work quite close with the detective, and they sort of help to solve this case together. And eventually they get the details of who the killer is, and they're on the pursuit of him, who by now has formed a sort of relationship with a blind woman. And we see our killer, who's played by Ralph Fiennes, and he's got like a disfigurement on his face, like an old cleft palate injury that's been there, and he looks at himself as being different and rejected from the human race. And I think this is down to his childhood, because it sort of examines his childhood in the sense of how his mother was sort of quite abusive to him. And so we see all this going on, and he forms a relationship with this woman, but he then sees her with another work colleague and gets very jealous and kills him. So, and another sort of thing that happens within the film, they try to be clever, our investigators, and they try to trick him by feeding all these lies to the paper. And they get the reporter, who again is another famous actor who I cannot put my name to. I think, let me try and have a look, see if he's on here. Sometimes they do put who's in the film on here. Unfortunately, this time they haven't. But he's plays a reporter. Yeah, it's on the front. Philip Seymour Hoffman, that's his name. And he posts all his lies in his paper about the killer being impotent and all this kind of thing. And he gets captured by the Tooth Fairy, who then tortures him and kills him in an awful, awful way. Which I think is rather kind of mean, to be honest, of the detectives sort of like setting him up like that. And then Will sort of fathoms out where he works, and then the story goes on to the climatic third part of the film. And the film's a really cool film. It's really, really good. Extremely talented cast, full of stars and major sort of actors. It sort of, and it follows a very, very good, strong story. But is there a need for it? Again, like I said to you about The First Omen, to me there was no need for it, in a sense, just because it's been done in Manhunter, which came out in the 1980s, I believe, before Silence of the Lambs and Hannibal and Hannibal Rising. Before those films, we had Manhunter, and this is a remake of it. So really there was no sort of need for it, but still doesn't take it away from it being a fantastic film. A really, really cool film. The lad watched it and he absolutely loved it. He scored it a 9 out of 10. And I do recommend it to you if you like a sort of, it's a horror film, but it's a horror film in the sense of an investigation of a serial killer film, investigating these horrible acts that are happening and trying to catch this killer before he kills the next family. Um, and there's some horrible deaths in the film. It is a bit of a slow burn because it's a story film based horror. It's not an all-out action slasher or a monster flick. Well, it is a monster flick in a way because serial killers are monsters, but it's a very sort of slow burn investigation sort of film along the sort of lines like Seven and films like that. If you enjoy those kind of horror films, it's definitely up there with those sort of films. It is a fantastic film. It is a prequel to Silence of the Lambs, although it came out after Silence of the Lambs. It came out after Hannibal, but we already had Manhunter that was before all those. So it's a strange one, like I said, because it's a great film, but it's possibly one of the films that wasn't required because it's already been done. Anyway, guys, till my next video, please check out some more horror channels for me. Harrow channels for me. Check out Horror Hands, Horror Geek, Man v Film, RS Designs, Pizzawell, I Am Ice Lord, Cat Watches Horror Movies, Grumpy Andrews Haunted House. And a massive shout out to my lad who's just standing there. Until next time, look after yourselves, look after one another, and I really hope I see you all soon.